He was 13 years old, and the entire world stopped to listen. One song, one voice, one kid from the Washington Heights housing projects who broke barriers nobody knew existed. Then everyone spent the rest of his life trying to destroy him. This is the story of Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers, and why his death matters more than his fame. Born December 30th, 1942, in Washington Heights, New York City, Frankie Lymon was already singing gospel in his father's church when he met four teenagers at Edward W. Stitt Junior High School. They called themselves the Premiers. According to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame archives, they were just kids singing doo-wop under the streetlights on 165th in Amsterdam. No major label, no grand plan, just neighborhood kids with voices that fit together like puzzle pieces. In 1955, Frankie helped rewrite a song called "Why Do Fools Fall in Love?" The audition with George Goldner's G Records arrived, but on the day they were supposed to perform, Herman Santiago, the original lead, fell ill. Frankie stepped in. One moment changed everything. Released in 1956, "Why Do Fools Fall in Love" became #1 on the R&B charts and topped the British pop charts. According to AllMusic and music historians, Frankie Lymon became the first black teenage pop star in American history. At 13, he was 13 years old, and teenage girls across America were screaming his name. By the end of 1956, Frankie and the Teenagers were arguably the most popular band in the nation. They appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show, American Bandstand, Alan Freed's rock and roll television specials. In one appearance, Frankie danced with a white girl on live television. The network had to shut down the entire show because Southern affiliates couldn't handle what they were seeing. A black child dancing with a white child. During segregation, it was considered dangerous. Between 1956 and 1957, they released 5 more singles. 3 reached the pop charts. They were untouchable. They were changing the sound of America. They were also being systematically destroyed. According to court documents in the 1998 film of the same name, record label owner George Goldner claimed authorship rights to "Why Do Fools Fall in Love?" Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers made no money from the biggest hit of their lives, the song that defined a generation, that influenced the Jackson 5, that inspired Berry Gordy's entire Motown model, made its creators nothing but famous. By 1957, Goldner pulled Frankie out of the group to pursue a solo career. The label split up a hit band to maximize profit. Frankie's voice was changing. He was 14. His childhood was gone. His innocence was already dead. What happened next was predictable and devastating. Frankie Lymon became a heroin addict at 15 years old. By the early 1960s, he had no hits, no relevance, no safety net. The industry that had used him had discarded him. On February 27, 1968, Frankie Lymon was found dead in his grandmother's bathroom in the same Washington Heights apartment where he'd grown up. Heroin overdose. He was 25 years old. He never got to be an adult. He never got to be a person. He was only ever allowed to be a voice. And then, when that voice changed, he was allowed to be nothing. His last 2 songs, "I'm Sorry" and "Sea Breeze," recorded for Big Apple Records before his death, were released later that year. Nobody heard them. By then, Frankie Lymon was a tragedy, not a star. In 1993, 35 years after his death, Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. By then, his contribution had been rewritten so many times that other members of the Teenagers had to fight in court in the 1990s just to prove they'd written the song. According to federal court records, a judge ruled that Lymon hadn't even written "Why Do Fools Fall in Love?" Another member had. The corruption went that deep. Listen to the song. It's been covered by Diana Ross, the Beach Boys, the Diamonds. It's in every movie about the 1950s. It's timeless. Generations of musicians built their careers on the template Frankie Lymon created, before he was old enough to drive. But Frankie? Frankie died broke, addicted, forgotten by the industry that had torn him apart. This Black History Month, we don't just celebrate Frankie Lymon's voice. We remember what happens when systems profit off youth, genius, and vulnerability. We remember that the same industry that gave us rock and roll was built on the broken backs of children. We remember that 13-year-old Black kids breaking barriers paid the price for integration that older white executives took credit for. His voice echoes everywhere, but his name, his dignity, his life, that they took. If you've ever felt like the system was designed to use you and throw you away, Frankie's story is yours. Share this, like this, follow for the names and faces of Black genius that history tried to erase.